My name is Ava Collins, I'm 35 years old, and what I'm about to tell you is the kind of story most people think only happens in movies. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? I love knowing where my audience is listening. Now, sit tight because this one still shakes me when I think about it. Let me start at the part that shocked me the most, the part that still feels like a punch to the stomach every time I remember it. I was standing in my kitchen in Seattle, holding my phone, staring at a bank alert that made my whole body freeze. $13,100 withdrawn. The withdrawal wasn't mine. Came from my credit card, the one only I was supposed to use. And the person who took it was my own mother. My own mom took my credit card, pulled out $13,100, and spent every bit of it on my brother's expensive trip. A trip I didn't even know he was taking. I remembered her voice like a slap. "It's nothing, Ava. Your brother deserves a break. He's stressed." And then my dad, smiling like he supported the whole thing. "It's not like you ever travel before." They said it like I was some extra in my own life. I didn't fight. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I only said, "Enjoy your trip." They thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. Because the moment they left the driveway, excited for a fully paid vacation, paid by me, I walked through the quiet hallway of the house they lived in for free, looked around at my properties, my cars, my guest house, everything I worked for, and I made a decision that would change everything. By the time they came back home, I would no longer own any of it. Not the house. Not the cars. Not even the land they walked on. I would sell all of it. And when they returned, confused, calling me over and over, I already had 44 missed calls. But what happened between the moment they left and the moment the calls began ringing non-stop? That's the part you need to hear. And trust me, it's a story about kindness, betrayal, family, and finding the courage to put yourself first. Before we dive deeper, let me introduce the people in this story because every story has its characters. There's me, Ava. 35, quiet, hardworking, the kind of woman who always chooses peace even when she shouldn't. I run a small interior design business that grew faster than I expected. I've always taken care of my family. Maybe too much. There's Mom, real name Linda Collins. She's the kind of mother who can be sweet as honey in public, but sharp as glass in private. She loves appearances. She loves saying her children are successful. But she also loves control, especially control over me. There's Dad, Richard Collins. He smiles a lot. But not the warm kind of smile. The kind that says he already made up his mind, and your opinion doesn't matter. And then there's my brother, Ethan. The golden child. The poor boy who works too hard, as my parents always say. Except half the time he's not working. He's relaxing, traveling, or calling me whenever he needs money to catch up. And I gave. But this story isn't just about them. It's about the moment I decided kindness doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It's about realizing empathy doesn't mean self-destruction. It's about finding yourself after years of being pushed down. And everything started the day before they took my credit card. It was a Sunday morning. I was arranging flowers in a vase. Sunflowers because they always make me happy. When Mom walked in with that bright smile that always meant trouble. "Ava," she said. "Your brother wants to travel. He found a wonderful trip to Miami. He needs to relax." I smiled politely. "That's nice. I hope he enjoys it." Mom's smile sharpened. "Well, he needs help paying for it." I sighed gently. "Mom, I've helped a lot lately. Maybe Ethan should." My dad walked in. "It's just money, Ava. Family helps family." That sentence had been used like a weapon on me for years. Little did I know, they weren't asking. They'd already taken. Later that night I found out. And that moment, the realization that my own parents stole from me, was my breaking point. But here's what most people don't understand. I didn't choose revenge. Chose freedom. Now let me take you into the beginning of the real story. How everything built up to that moment. As a child, I was always the quiet one. I loved books, art, drawing pictures of homes I wished I lived in. My parents didn't pay much attention to me. They were always focused on Ethan. "He's the boy," they'd say. He needs more. But I didn't mind. I learned kindness early. Whenever I had something good, I shared it. Whenever someone needed help, I gave it. Thought that was love. Thought that was family. Growing up in Washington State, I worked part-time jobs, took college classes at night, and even helped pay some of my parents' bills. I bought my first property at 28, renovated it myself, and rented it out. That's how everything started. My parents didn't treat it like an achievement. They treated it like a resource. "Our daughter has money," they'd say proudly. "She helps us." I didn't complain. My grandma used to tell me, kindness is not weakness unless you let it be. I thought giving made me strong. But now, standing in my living room watching them drive off to Miami, laughing and excited after draining $13,100 from my card, something inside me cracked. My kindness had become their excuse. My silence had become their permission. I walked into my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and whispered, "No more." That night I made calls. I emailed agents. I listed properties. I organized documents. I moved money. I planned everything in total silence. If they could make choices without me, then I could make choices without them. And just before midnight, as I signed the paperwork for the first major sale, the house suddenly felt too quiet, too still, like it knew everything was about to change. But remember, this chapter ends with a dramatic event. And here it comes. Just when I thought everything was going smoothly, I walked downstairs to lock up for the night, and the front door slowly opened by itself. Someone was in the house. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. And when I heard footsteps in the hallway, my heart stopped. The door creaked open so slowly that the sound felt like it scraped against my bones. For a moment I couldn't move. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my hand still gripping the railing, listening to the quiet footsteps moving across the hardwood floor. Someone was inside my house. Someone who definitely wasn't supposed to be there. My breath felt trapped inside my chest. I didn't have roommates. I didn't have surprise visitors. And my parents, they were thousands of miles away in Miami, spending my money like they earned it themselves. So who? The footsteps stopped. The silence pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. I swallowed hard and slowly stepped back toward the living room, trying to stay quiet. I didn't have a weapon, nothing close. The closest thing was a glass vase of sunflowers on the table. Great. I could fight an intruder with a flower arrangement. I didn't have to. Because as I rounded the corner, a small voice squeaked, "Ava, is that you?" Froze. My heart was still racing, but now for a different reason. Standing there, holding a set of keys and looking completely unsure of herself, was Mrs. Jensen, my elderly neighbor from next door. 71 years old, hunched shoulders, wearing a pink cardigan she knitted herself. My whole body deflated with relief. "Mrs. Jensen, you scared me," I gasped, pressing my hand to my chest. She blinked nervously. I'm so sorry, dear. I didn't mean to frighten you. You left your back porch light on and I thought maybe you forgot to lock the door. I used the spare key you gave me last year, remember? But the emergency key. The one I completely forgot existed. I let out a long breath and managed a smile. "It's okay. Really. I'm just tired." She looked at me closely, her eyes softening. "You've been tired for years, sweetheart." The words hit me harder than I expected. She stepped inside and closed the door. "I heard your parents left today. Heading off on some fancy vacation." I rolled my eyes. "Fancy and fully funded with my credit card." Her eyebrows shot up. "Your card. They didn't ask." "No. They just took it." Mrs. Jensen shook her head slowly. "Oh, Ava. Kindness is a gift, but people forget they're supposed to give back, not only take." He nodded. "I know. I'm just done." She squeezed my arm gently. "Sometimes, dear, the only way to teach people respect is to stop giving them chances to disrespect you." Her words stayed with me long after she left. She had no idea about the papers I had already signed, the sales that were already underway, The decisions that were already in motion. I walked her out, double-checked the locks, and returned to the quiet living room. My heart still felt like it was beating in my throat, but I was calmer. That was the first less extreme moment. A gentle reminder from the universe that not everyone in my life wanted to take things from me. But the calm didn't last long. Once Mrs. Jensen left, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop to continue the process of selling my assets. I scrolled through messages from real estate agents, potential buyers, bank confirmations. Everything was moving fast. Faster than even I expected. I wasn't scared of losing the properties. I wasn't scared of starting fresh. I was scared of what would happen when my parents returned and realized everything they felt entitled to was gone. But that was a problem for later. For now, I focused on the present. I worked late into the night sorting through documents, and memories washed over me. Good ones, painful ones, forgotten ones. Like when I bought my first house at 28 and showed my mom the keys with pride. She didn't even look at them. "We'll move into the guest room," she said instead. "Ethan needs his old room." I didn't even realize she meant permanently. Not until they brought their furniture. Ethan always got the big room. I always got responsibility. I thought helping them was kindness. I thought that was what a daughter is supposed to do. But kindness isn't meant to crush you. Kindness is supposed to lift everyone, including you. I worked through all those thoughts as I organized the last files for the night. Around 2 a.m. I shut my laptop and leaned back, exhaustion pulling me into sleep right there on the couch. But sleep didn't come easy. Because around 7 a.m. my phone buzzed. A message from the real estate agent. "Good news. We received a full cash offer, above your asking price. They want to close immediately." My heart stopped. It was happening. Everything was truly happening. I sat up, staring at the message, feeling a strange mixture of fear, relief, and something new, something like freedom. This was the less extreme moment of the chapter. Calm progress, quiet movement, a glimpse of hope. But this story isn't built on calm moments. Because just when I started to feel steady, just when I thought nothing could shock me again, my phone rang. Then it rang again. And again. Over 10 calls in less than 2 minutes. From numbers I didn't know. From my dad's number. From my mom's number. From my brother's number. Then from private number. I hadn't answered a single call. They weren't supposed to be back yet. Finally I picked up. Before I could speak, my mother's voice exploded through the phone, loud, frantic, and shaking. "Ava, what did you do? Why is there a family living in our house?" My blood went cold. They were back early. They were standing in front of the house. And strangers were moving in. For a few seconds I didn't say anything. All I heard on the phone was chaos. My mom shouting. My dad yelling in the background. Ethan asking questions I knew he would never take responsibility for. And behind it all, the sound of strangers moving furniture into what used to be my house, but had become theirs. "Ava!" My mother screamed again. "Are you hearing me? What is happening? Why are these people saying they own our house?" The word "our" made my jaw tighten. It was never their house. It was mine. I paid for every brick, every tile, every bill. But I kept my voice calm. "Mom," I said softly. "I'm busy right now." "Busy?" she shrieked. "We just arrived home and..." She suddenly gasped like someone punched the air out of her. "Ava, our key isn't working." My dad shouted behind her. "Try it again." She yelled back. "Richard, I have tried it." I closed my eyes for a moment. This was the moment I knew would come. But not this soon. Not this fast. "Why is our key not working?" she demanded. I inhaled deeply. "Because it's not your house anymore." Silence. A long, horrible, frozen silence. "What did you just say?" my mother roared. But I didn't repeat myself. She heard me the first time. Dad grabbed the phone. "Ava, you better be joking. These people out here, this family, are saying they bought this place. They have paperwork. They have movers. They have..." His voice lowered. "A sold sign, Ava. A sold sign in the yard." Yes, I said. It sold quickly. My mom exploded again. You sold our house while we were away. It was my house, I corrected softly. You've never paid $1 to live there. Not one. Another silence. But this one wasn't empty. It was boiling. Finally, Mom spoke with a cold hiss. You ungrateful child. And I felt something inside me click into place. Ungrateful. I had given them everything. Paid their bills. Paid for repairs. Paid for Ethan's tuition. Paid for their vacations. Paid for their comfort. And when that wasn't enough, they stole $13,100 from me. Something in me hardened. I'll call you later, I said, ending the call before she could speak again. But the moment I hung up, my phone buzzed again and again, non-stop. Calls, messages, voicemails, FaceTime requests, 44 missed calls. All in under 15 minutes. But I didn't answer. I sat back on my bed and exhaled slowly, letting the noise fade into the background. Now, this next part is the less extreme moment of the chapter. A moment when life quieted down, even while everything in the background was on fire. I made myself a cup of tea. Chamomile. I needed something calming. I sat on my small balcony and looked over the city. For the first time in years. Felt peace. Not happiness. Not victory. Just peace. I thought about everything that led up to this moment. How many times I begged them to treat me with respect. How many times I let things slide. How many times I covered expenses because family comes first. No one ever put me first. Not my parents. Not Ethan. Not anyone. Except my neighbor, Mrs. Jensen. My old college friend, Mariah. My mentor, Mr. Brooks. My own inner child who kept pushing me to keep going, no matter how tired I felt. I thought about kindness, real kindness. Not the kind that drains you. The kind that inspires people, lifts people, heals people. That was the kind of life I wanted. So that morning I made a new plan. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. I would take the money from selling everything and start somewhere fresh. Quiet. Simple. Beautiful. Maybe Vancouver. Maybe Colorado. Maybe a small town in Oregon. Anywhere I could breathe again. I spent hours researching rentals, apartments, new office space for my design business. I made lists, budgets, ideas. The quiet moment felt almost unreal after the storm of the morning. But there was something else I had to do. Something important. I needed to pack my things from the apartment I was staying in temporarily. Even though I moved out of the main house months ago, I still had paperwork and personal items to sort. I turned on music, folded clothes, filled boxes, and worked peacefully through the afternoon. Felt like a fresh start. Like a new chapter in my life had quietly opened. But this chapter wasn't meant to end quietly. Because around 5 p.m., just as I was sealing the last box, someone knocked on my apartment door. Not a soft knock. Not a gentle one. A loud, angry, pounding knock that made my entire body freeze. I walked slowly to the door, looked through the peephole, and my heart slammed against my ribs. Standing there, red-faced, furious, breathing hard, was my mother. She had come straight from the airport. And she wasn't alone. My father was behind her. And Ethan. All three of them. My door. For a long moment, I simply stared through the peephole, unable to move. My mother's face was twisted with anger. My father was pacing behind her, and Ethan stood with his arms crossed like he had done nothing wrong. They looked like a storm waiting to crash through my door. Another round of loud knocks shook the frame. Ava! Open this door right now. Mom's voice pierced through the wood. My hands trembled a little, not from fear of them, but from the intensity of the situation. It wasn't every day that the people who took advantage of me for years suddenly showed up at my door demanding answers. I took a slow breath, straightened my shoulders, and unlocked the door. The moment it swung open, Mom pushed past me into the apartment. Ava Collins, what have you done? She shouted. Dad followed, then Ethan, silent but glaring. I shut the door calmly and turned to face them. What are you all doing here? Mom spun around, eyes wild. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? She pointed toward the hallway like the answer was written on the wall. We came home to strangers taking over our house. Our furniture on the lawn. Our things in boxes. They said they bought it. And now you're asking why we're here. It wasn't your house, I said softly. Dad stepped forward. Ava, this isn't funny anymore. You've done something reckless. Fix it. I lifted an eyebrow. Fix what? The house, he snapped. We lived there. How could you sell it without telling us? Before I could respond, Mom cut in again. We raised you. We supported you. We gave you everything. That sentence. Oh, how familiar it sounded. Except it had never been true. I answered calmly. Actually, I gave you everything. I paid for the house. I paid for the bills. I paid for the food. I paid for Ethan's debts, his trips, even your medical bills last year. And most recently, I paid for your Miami vacation. Ethan rolled his eyes. It wasn't that serious. My voice dropped. You stole $13,100 from me. The room fell silent. My mom swallowed and crossed her arms. We didn't steal. We borrowed. And we would have paid you back eventually. You never pay me back, I said quietly. Not once. And you didn't even ask. Dad huffed. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Nothing. They thought that taking my money, disrespecting my boundaries, and treating me like a bank account was nothing. I didn't shout. I didn't match their anger. I just stood there steady. You sold the house while we were on vacation, Mom said, voice breaking with disbelief. How could you do this to your own family? I looked at her directly. How could you do what you did to your own daughter? That sentence hit them harder than any scream. They didn't respond. That was the less extreme moment of this chapter. The quiet before the next explosion. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat on the couch. Sit down if you want to talk, I said calmly. Mom didn't sit. She stood with her hands on her hips. You are going to undo this. Call the buyer. Tell them you made a mistake. I'm not undoing anything, I said. Dad's voice rose. Ava, you're being childish. I set the glass down. No. For the first time, I'm being an adult who chooses herself. Ethan sneered. So what now we're homeless? That's what you want. You're not homeless, I said. You can rent. Like normal adults. You can work. Like normal adults. You can pay your own way. Like normal adults. Mom shook her head in disbelief. Who taught you to talk like this? You did, I answered. The day you took my credit card without my permission. Another heavy silence filled the apartment. But the conversation wasn't done. Not even close. Dad finally sank onto the chair near the window. We're your parents. You owe us respect. No, I said quietly. You owe me respect. And you never gave it. Ethan scoffed. You always act like you do everything alone. I did everything alone, I replied. The truth tasted sharp but freeing. My mother's voice softened, but only a little. Ava, you should have talked to us first. No, I said firmly. You should have talked to me before taking my money. Another long pause. My dad rubbed his forehead. My mom finally sat down. Ethan paced in the corner. For a moment the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe the conversation was over. Maybe we had reached a point where we could breathe. But then, a loud, hard knock slammed against the door. All of us froze. 3 more harsh knocks followed. I stood slowly and looked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. Standing outside were 2 uniformed police officers. I opened the door carefully. Good evening, ma'am, the taller officer said. We received a report of possible property fraud related to the home on Willow Creek Drive. Are you Ava Collins? My parents gasped behind me. Ethan muttered. No way. I felt the blood drain from my face. Yes, I said. Ma'am, the officer continued. We need to ask you some questions. Your family here reported that the home you sold may not have been solely in your name. My mother burst out from behind me. Yes, that's right. She stole our home. Stole. My own mother just told the police I stole something I owned legally. The officers looked at me again. Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us to clarify the ownership records. The hallway felt colder than it should have as the two officers stood there, waiting for my response. My parents hovered behind me like shadows. Furious, embarrassed, desperate. Ethan looked stunned, but not enough to speak up for me. Not enough to tell the truth. My mother's voice sliced through the air again. Officer, she sold the house behind our backs. We lived there. Everything was in that house. She tricked us. My dad added. We're her parents. That home belonged to all of us. My jaw clenched gently. There it was. The truth twisted into something ugly. The taller officer turned back to me. Ma'am, we aren't arresting you. We only need clarity. We received the report from them less than an hour ago, and we're obligated to investigate. I nodded slowly. I understand. Inside, my heart was beating fast, not from guilt, but from the weight of everything happening at once. The betrayal, the lies, the desperation in my parents' eyes. The old version of me would have broken down. The old version of me would have apologized for something I didn't do. But that version of me was gone. Officers, I said calmly, all the ownership documents are in my laptop. I can show you everything. Good, the officer said. Let's step inside and take a look. When they walked in, my parents followed even though no one invited them. Ethan trailed behind like a confused child. I pulled out my laptop from my desk, opened the files, and clicked through every document. Titles, receipts, payment histories, tax forms, renovation permits. Everything was in my name. Every legal signature was mine. Every record was clean. The officers studied them carefully. After several minutes, the shorter officer nodded. Everything seems legitimate. The records show sole ownership in your name. The taller officer closed my laptop gently. Miss Collins, you're cleared. There's no fraud. My mother's face dropped in shock. What do you mean, cleared? We lived there. We had a right to that house. The officer replied firmly. Ma'am, living in a property does not grant ownership. Legally, she had full rights to sell it. My dad stepped forward, pointing at me. She can't just throw us out. The officer turned to him. Sir, she hasn't thrown you out. She sold her property. You will need to secure your own housing now. Ethan muttered under his breath. Man, this is messed up. The officer continued. We won't be taking any further action. This is a family matter, not a legal one. And just like that, the extreme tension snapped. The officers thanked me for my cooperation and stepped out. When the door closed behind them, the apartment fell into a suffocating silence. Mom was the first to break. Ava, how could you do this to us? She whispered, tears filling her eyes. We're your parents. For the first time, her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. Almost broken. I sat on the couch and motioned for her to sit too. She didn't move, but she listened. I didn't do anything to you, Mom, I said gently. I did something for myself. Dad shook his head. We gave you a home. No, I corrected. I gave you a home. For years. I gave so much that you stopped seeing it as kindness. You saw it as something you deserved. My mother wiped her eyes quickly. We needed help. And I helped, I said, keeping my voice calm, steady. But helping became hurting. I wasn't your daughter anymore. I was your wallet. Ethan stepped forward. So what now? You expect us to be okay with this? I expect nothing, I replied. But I hope, maybe for once, you'll learn to stand on your own feet. He scoffed and looked away, but his eyes softened for a moment. Just a tiny moment. Dad paced across the room. Where are we supposed to go? That's up to you, I said. But I'll help you find temporary housing. Just temporary. And not forever. My mom looked at me again, her voice cracking. So this is it. You're leaving us. I'm not leaving, I said. I'm finally living. For a moment none of them spoke. This was the less extreme moment, the calm, honest, fragile truth that hung in the air like soft light after a storm. Then something unexpected happened. My mom sat down slowly. Ava. We didn't realize how much we were taking. I didn't realize how much you were hurting. He nodded. Because I never said anything. She breathed out shakily. I'm sorry. The apology wasn't perfect. It wasn't emotional or dramatic. But it was real. Dad lowered his eyes. I didn't see it either. Even Ethan mumbled. I messed up too. For the first time in years my family looked at me, not as a resource but as a person. It wasn't everything. It wasn't complete healing. But it was a start. We talked for another hour. I explained the boundaries I needed. The life I was choosing. The future I wanted. They didn't understand all of it, but they listened. Eventually they left the apartment quietly. Not shouting. Not slamming the door. Just leaving. I walked to the window and watched them get into their car. Mom looked back once, her expression softer than I'd seen in a long time. When their car disappeared down the street, I finally sat down. And for the first time, cried. Not from sadness, not from fear, but from release. The extreme event that closes this final chapter isn't chaos. It isn't anger. It isn't another betrayal. It's the moment I realized I survived everything they put me through. It's the moment I knew I was free. It's the moment I chose myself. And it felt like stepping into sunlight after years in the dark. Hope you enjoy the story. Please like and subscribe to my channel.